Buckets.
This meeting is being recorded.
My bad. All right, Jimmy Buckets send the Bucks home. I mean, I think that was the shocker of the week there, the weekend there. When did it happen? On Yeah, no,
Thursday,
yesterday,
I think.
right? Day before yesterday, Thursday. I don't even know what today is. I'm sorry. It's yeah.
Yeah, it
I
was
don't know.
yesterday. Yeah.
It was yesterday. Okay, cool. All right. It seemed like it happened like 2 days ago for some reason. I don't know. I'm
Actually, it
sorry,
might have
guys.
been. Yeah.
I don't know my days anymore. Like I don't know. Like
Yeah, everything's
um
running together at this point. No, it was 2 days ago because last night it was only the Celtics Hawks game.
okay, so it was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Cool, cool. Jimmy Buckets. I don't know what to say. What else to say about this man? Well, I know what to say, but I don't know. He does it again. He eliminates Giannis and the Bucks from the playoffs in 5 games. Um, I don't really even have a question for you guys on this topic. Like, I just want to know initial thoughts, reactions. There's so much to dive into with this game.
Yeah.
Was it a push off? Should he have been called for a foul? Like, what is it? We're looking at the replay, and they're saying that the opposing guy that was guarding him fouled him. Like, we got the Budenholzer. He didn't call timeouts in overtime or the fourth quarter. Like,
Yeah.
and we're getting words. This came out not too long ago that Budenholzer, his brother, died during that game in a car crash. So I it's so much that's going on in this series. Giannis saying it isn't a failure. I don't know. I just want you guys to give your take on this game, this series, the season for the Bucks. Miami is so much. I just wanted you guys to give your take.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's just been unbelievable. Like, not only was it I think the fifth, eighth seed to upset a number one seed, also the first play-in team to ever win a series. Jimmy Butler, going for 56, then 42. I think his 56 was like tied for like fourth most in playoff history. And then Danny, like you said, all the ramifications on the Bucks side of things. There's just so many things to look at. I think we probably need to start with Jimmy Butler and just the fact that it's been historic, it's been legendary. We saw him do this last few years. I don't know if we've seen him have a better performance than that game 4, where it really did seem like Giannis coming back, that the Bucks were going to take it, tie the series at 2, and maybe restart game 5, and the Bucks probably end up winning the series. I think that's what most people thought. And with a little bit more than halfway to go in the fourth quarter, it looked like the Bucks were going to win that game. I think they were up by like 15 or just about that with 6 minutes to go. And then the rest of the way, Jimmy Butler
16.
outscores him. Yeah, Butler outscores him 20-13. He had 22 fourth quarter points. Like, I mean, unbelievable. Like what we saw in that fourth quarter was something I don't know if we've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. Sunday, Butler's performance.
It felt like watching Game 5, which felt a little bit like watching the 2020 Eastern Conference semifinals. Yeah. Just really felt like a movie we've seen before. Mm-hmm. I before I even get too deep into that, I do want to I guess express my condolences to Mike Budenholzer and his family. Losing a loved one is always really hard.
Yeah.
I dislike how rigid I dislike how rigid a lot of things are for the Bucks. I think you guys have heard the term 82 game player and 16 game player. In relation to guys who succeed for, guys who are able to be, quality players over the course of a, regular season. Mm-hmm. And then, for whatever reason, things don't translate to the playoffs for them. I know that there are coaches out there who do a little bit more in the way of experimenting, finding lineups they like, finding sets they like, different counters to different, common ways teams are going to try to guard them, different defenses that they can go to, and tactical adjustments. And then there are coaches who are a lot more like, no, this is the way we play, and we're just going to be as good at this as we can. And the way there are 82 game players and 16 game players, I kind of feel like there are 82 game coaches and 16 game coaches. And I think that Bud might just be an 82 game coach.
I agree.
I just, there's again things, the things are so rigid. It is very much, we are doing it this way. We're gonna defend ball screens with our big and a deep drop, no matter who the big is. And like, it's great. I get that. They give up, their scheme has largely always given up too many like catch and shoot and like open threes for my liking. Um, and to be clear, a large part of the reason Miami won this series is because they made everything, which is, that's not normal. They made contested threes, they made open threes, they made threes off the dribble, and Miami was, not that kind of team this season. All that being said, it's a problem that teams know that they can go pick and roll. And if they have primary ball handlers who are good pull-up shooters, they can just get to that shot whenever they want to. It's a problem that, Milwaukee isn't more willing to, to switch. And like, do they have like the best roster for that? No, which is another problem that we'll get into in a second. But you want to just see more in the way of being willing to adjust to what teams are giving you, and they don't do that. And that's aside from the late game offense and fourth quarter offensive issues that they've had for years, and that really reared their head in Game 4 and Game 5 of this series. And then we saw like Miami. And this is where we talk about the roster a little bit. One of the reasons why, and you guys have heard me touch on this before, but one of the reasons why I didn't pick Milwaukee to win the championship is because this team has a stunning lack of athleticism on the roster. Duncan Robinson has been out of the Miami Heat rotation for a while because he can't guard anybody. And in this series, he was able to be on the court comfortably because he was just able to guard whoever was in the corner, which again is partially on Milwaukee for allowing that to happen. And for, from Bud's perspective, that's got to be a thing where we attack Duncan Robinson when he's on the floor. We make him unplayable because of the spacing and the shooting that he provides to Miami. But also, like, the fact that the athletes on the roster, that like, there isn't enough athleticism and explosiveness on Milwaukee's roster to where they can just punish that is an issue. It's an issue.
There's so much here. I guess I want to start with the 13 missed free throws from Giannis. You simply, in a closeout game, cannot miss 13 free throws and then call yourself the best player in basketball. Like, it's unfathomable that you can miss that many free throws with your season on the line to a point where you didn't even want to touch the basketball in crunch time. When you went up and you did a jump ball, you immediately threw it to another player. Like, you're scared to shoot free throws. Like, that cannot happen if you want to be an all-time great player. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't all-time great players that struggle from the line, Shaq. But one thing that I always said about Shaq is when Shaq needed to make free throws, he did. In that situation, Giannis didn't make free throws. And it's not the fact that he missed 2 games, because I believe if we all believe that if he plays the entire series, the Bucks win. But also, there was 2 additional games when you played and your team lost. Not both of those games, but your team still lost the series. So he has to play better. The team didn't make the adjustments they needed to make in order to win this series. It's just that simple. Drew Holiday could not guard Jimmy Butler. Like, let's call a spade a spade. He's an amazing defender. He's probably the best perimeter defender in the league. But if I am Giannis, I'm telling the coach, hey, fuck your game plan. I'm not saying it like that. But hey, he's torching us. He's torching. He just scored 56. I don't want to hear Giannis say respect the game plan of the coach. No, you're the best player on the team. You need to tell the coach, hey, that's my man. That's my man. I'm guarding him. For Giannis to be to him to be a defensive player of the year, he does not guard the best defender. Like, I don't understand, like, if you can win that award and call yourself a defensive-minded player, but you don't guard the best defender, the opposing team best player when he just torched you the previous game, how can you call yourself the best defender?
So what I do want to say to that, and then Chaz want to make sure you get in here, but what I do want to say to that is, like, my God, LeBron. Sorry, reverse dunk off a cut. That was nice.
Nasty.
Yeah, it was nasty. What I want to say to that is, Giannis defensively is something closer to a big than he is to, a perimeter defender. So, like, a comparison would be like Anthony Davis. You wouldn't necessarily expect Anthony Davis to be, guarding a wing for large stretches of the game. It doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense.
Doesn't have to be large stretches of the game. I'm saying when the game is on the line, you put your best defender, who is Giannis, on the opposing best player, especially when he's torching us the entire series. I don't care about any I honestly don't even care what you just said. Like, I understand that, but at that particular time, I don't give a damn. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't care. When the season is on the line and the series is on the line and it's not working for Drew Holiday, it's not working. It didn't work.
Fair enough, but, like, that is just, like, objectively speaking, that's, like, probably just not the best way to use Giannis defensively. I mean, if anything, just get the ball out of Jimmy Butler's hands. That's what we should be talking about.
We'll trap him.
Go double him.
Double him. Trap him. Do something.
Blitz the pick and roll. Just get the ball out of his hands.
I think that's the key right there. I think putting Giannis on him is an option, but I don't think it's the best one. I think the best one is when a guy is scoring 56 on you and then he's en route to scoring 40 again, you send a double at him. If he hits 2 buckets in a row, you don't let him get a third one, a good third look. You send a double at him. You blitz him out of the pick and roll. I mean, Bud doesn't like to do any of that, but I think in these crucial moments, you have to do it, even if it's not what your team is used to.
I'm sorry, but it wasn't like Miami was trying to play small. I mean, trying to play big boy ball. Let's keep it a buck.
What do you mean? I mean, they were just giving it to Jimmy.
With Bam, they wasn't trying to play big boy ball. Like,
no, they weren't. That's why. I mean, that's why you double Jimmy and get the ball out of his hands, right?
I don't necessarily agree with that. I believe at that particular time, I'm not saying for the entire series. Yeah. I'm not saying even in the first, second, or third quarter. I'm saying when the money's on the line, I want Giannis on him.
I think Giannis would get burnt just like Drew Holiday did.
At least
we saw what it looked like with Giannis. To be clear, this isn't the first time we've done this with Milwaukee, where people have said, "Why isn't Giannis guarding insert guy that likes to kind of play a little bit more on the perimeter here?" We did this with, like, Giannis guarding Kevin Durant. This is who people were saying, "Why isn't he guarding KD in 2021?" And, like, we saw what those possessions looked like with Giannis guarding KD, and he couldn't guard KD. It's not the thing that he's best at defensively. It's not what makes him an elite defender. So, like, asking him to do that, that's like saying, like, oh, Rudy Gobert is a great defender. Steph is scoring. Why isn't Rudy Gobert stopping Steph? It's not. Rudy Gobert is an elite rim protector. It's comparing apples to oranges. It's not.
I guess what I'm saying is that it doesn't have to be for an entire series. I'm saying, but when money's on the line, when it's your season's on the line, I'm going to go up to the coach and be like, "Hey, I know this is not I don't care. I'm going to scrap the game plan. When Giannis is in the press conference and he said, "Hey, did you want to guard Jimmy Butler more?" He said, "Yes, I did, but I'm going to respect the coach decision." I would have said, "Fuck the coach, fuck your decision." No, like, and I would have said it respectfully, but no, especially if he said, "Oh yeah, I wanted to guard him more." I don't care. The season is on the line. You're seeing that it's over if you lose. I don't care about any other entity. What's going on that happened the first 42 minutes of this game? I don't care. I don't care that Drew Holiday was on him the first 6 games of this. I do not care. I don't. Because if you went and tell me, and I promise you, Giannis probably did, would say, "Hey, coach, like, let me take a stab at him." I promise you, Giannis did that. And he want to say, "Yeah, no, let's stick to the game plan." Your game plan hasn't been working. Your game plan didn't working in the previous game when you went for 56. It wasn't working in the first 3 quarters of that game because it was, even though you were up, they kept it manageable and it took over in the fourth. So it clearly wasn't working for you guys to change some stuff up because you end up losing the game. So your game plan didn't work. So if that doesn't work, try something different. I'm not saying Giannis had to guard him for the entirety of the series. Send double teams at him. How about you would have sent double teams at him the previous game when he scored 56? Maybe he wouldn't score 56. Who the fuck knows?
I don't know
But
how somebody can light you up like that, and you don't start double teaming them, especially when you have a guy like Tyler Hero out and Bam
their
Adebayo's not even.
second best score.
Yeah,
They let a team that didn't have their second leading scorer, that in the regular season was one of the worst, like, as far as shooting the three, they scored like one of the team that scored one of the lowest totals in the regular season. You let a team that is essentially a one-man wrecking crew beat you. Like
I know.
it's unacceptable.
And I
It's
mean,
unacceptable.
we can disagree on what we would do with Giannis and stuff, but I think we can all agree that Budenholzer needed to do something. You can't just stick with the same game plan. You have to change up something after somebody puts 56 on you, or going back home into a game 5 like that, and you see Jimmy Butler starting to get rolling again. You have to change up something. He pretty much just stayed pat. I mean, I think the refusal there was a lot of things that the Bucks did wrong in that. I mean, the refusal to not switch was a factor. Obviously, like we're talking about, not to double team was, but then also not using the timeout with zero point 0.5 seconds left in regulation, not using a
Yeah.
timeout, not using a timeout in or actually before I get to that, also with that zero point 0.5 seconds left, when Jimmy Butler hit the game tying, tip in, you didn't have Brooke Lopez on the floor. I mean, there was a lot of things. Then you go to overtime, you get off to a slow start, you don't really make any substitutions, you don't use a timeout late in the overtime period. I mean, then you're
Just
stuck.
terrible execution all over for
Yeah.
that.
And I mean the way it ended up with Grayson Allen dribbling the ball with 0 seconds on the clock. I mean, you have to call timeout. You have to get the 5 guys that you want on the floor. And I mean it was bad from the entire team, and Budenholzer, it's not a good look. I don't know if he's gonna, if it's gonna cost him his job. I think he's got 1 year left on his contract, but it's something that we've seen from him before. And now you're in a series where I think a lot of people think that these decisions that he made were a big factor in the loss. And there's other things that you can put it on. Giannis going 10 of 23 from the line. I think he was like 1 of 9 from the field, 2 of 9 from free throw in the fourth quarter. So, you're not going to do that when your best player is shooting like that. But Budenholzer definitely has to take some of the blame for it.
And obviously, with the news that I said earlier about his brother, you can't. For real, you can't be too. Again, it's a tough business where that's a tough call where it's things that's more important than basketball, you know, and obviously that could have weighed in on some of these decisions where his head simply wasn't in the game. So I mean, I believe he come back as coach. I do agree with Tunde. Well, one of his initial points is that I believe he's a regular season coach. Um, I don't think, and then Jay Crowder just came out and said he don't know his role here. It's just a lot with this team. Like, I don't. Should you blow it up? Should you keep it? Run it back? I don't know. One thing I do know is that Giannis ain't the best player. Like, You can't miss 13. I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry. I can't get over the free throws. I can't. Like,
But he
I
had
mean,
games.
so then was Shaq not the best player in
no,
the league in
Shaq. I said it
2000?
before. Shaq
Because
made it when it mattered.
Not
no,
always.
he didn't. No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
So I believe Shaq
No.
made his free
We're
throws.
not rewriting history. Shaquille O'Neal was a horrible free throw shooter. Even when he should have been the unanimous MVP, they were dominant and winning championships. They three-peated. He was a horrible free throw shooter throughout every phase of that. Yeah, no.
Well, I don't know your point with the point you're trying to make because I've been on record. I've never thought Shaq was the best player in the league.
Well, you're wrong. Yeah, that you're
So I
just
mean, I believe I've said that before. So
who was the
He was the
best
best
player?
player in
Who's the best
2000.
player in the league in 2000? If Shaq wasn't the best player in the league in 2000,
Tim Duncan.
and you would. I love Tim Duncan. That's just not true.
Well,
Yeah, that's just not true.
I'm going. That's my idea, and I'm going to stick to it. So I mean, I can go on why I believe that, but that's for another day. I
Sure.
also put Kobe up there as well. But I mean, again, that's for another day. I don't believe Shaq was ever the best player. He was the most dominant, but I would never consider Shaq as the best player in the NBA.
Well,
And
Danny,
I think Shaq could tell you that as well because you've said it multiple times.
I do have a question for you because
Yep.
this is something that we have seen from Giannis before, and we've also seen him go, 17 and 19 or whatever it was in the clincher in the finals. So like we've seen both sides of it, and this is a guy that you have said is the best player in the world for the last 2 years. So just because his most recent game is one of these, that's enough for you to say that he's no longer at the top.
I think it's not just the way that it happened for them, because it's not a one-man sport. It's a team sport. So the team takes the blame for it. But I do think not just because how things are going in this playoff, I believe that the title has the proverbial title, which is really not an existing thing. We just like to debate it a lot. I believe that it was up for grab anyways. Like, no, I believe Giannis is the best player, but I believe that it could have been swayed based on playoff performances this round. I mean, not this round, but this season in the playoffs. So I'm not saying it just from one instance. I said Giannis was the best player, but also that it wasn't definitive. Like it wasn't. There's no competition. As when he had his reign, like there was no one and no one was in the stratosphere. I'm saying people aren't in the stratosphere of Giannis. Like he's not overwhelmingly the best player, So when you have performances like that, it brings you back down to the pack with everybody else. And then that's where arguments can be made for other people. Like if individuals go on incredible playoff runs this season, how can you not go look at that player and be like, when the season's over, and you'd be like, man, would they just do that? Like, I mean, it has to be discussion if this man is the best player in the world. So I'm not saying that I believe the title is up for grabs. And I believe there's multiple people that can grab that brass. I believe Kevin Durant has the opportunity to grab that, if he was able to get where he want his team to go. I believe Steph has a chance to grab that. So I believe people have opportunity. I think Jokic has a chance to grab that. I think Jokic is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't consider Jokic as the best player because he hasn't had one of those incredible playoff runs where he can, not saying you have to win a championship, I'm saying you could get to a finals and still have an incredible series and people may consider you the best player. So it's not always about winning. And it's not always about, you got to win a title to get that title. If you make a deep playoff run, and I believe Jokic is a one playoff, really like historic playoff run from being in that conversation, you could very well be considered the best player.
Well, I see where you're coming from. I don't know who I would have as the best player right now. I'd probably still have it as Giannis. We'll have to see how the playoffs end up. I did want to get your thoughts on what he said, both of yours, on what he said after the game, saying that the season was not a failure and, it's just more of a step in the process type of thing. This team who was the odds-on favorite to win it all, the favorite according to most sports books, number one seed, home court advantage throughout. And you're going up against the lowest scoring team in the entire regular season, with a team like we mentioned without Tyler Hero. So I mean, it's an unprecedented upset in my opinion, and it's kind of semantics. To say is it a failure, is it not? I see where Giannis is coming from because, yes, everything is a step in the long, process,
He's
but
comparing it to life,
yeah,
essentially.
but if we're just talking about was this
This is
season a
basketball,
failure,
bro.
there's no way around it. You just
Come
lost.
on, man.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
like
It's
yeah,
like this is a
you make
circle
me.
of life.
yeah,
This is a circle of life. I mean,
Listen,
obviously,
I don't even disagree with like all 30 teams. Like he was one of the things he brought up is like he's like, so every year you don't win a championship is a failure. The
right.
50 years every season in between the championship in 2021 and whenever the one that won with Kareem was the last one, those were all failures and all of that stuff. Well, listen, man, listen. Um, I don't even disagree with the overarching point.
Yeah,
Every team's goal every year is not win a championship. I agree with that. If you're a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, for instance, your goal was not to win a championship this year. Your goal was to get continuity, develop young guys, and they did all of that this year, and even got them some legit postseason experience. Like OKC's season was a success relative to what stage they're at, in their team building. The Milwaukee Bucks very clearly are trying to win another championship. They're just 2 years removed from winning a championship. They're trying to win another one. They went for it all, traded 5 second-rounders for Jay Crowder, made lots of moves to acquire players, older players, mind you, with the intention of winning now. Have the guy who is probably the best player in the NBA, Giannis Antetokounmpo, like that. Come on, man. Like it's okay for us to just be honest about this and admit
it's
that, like, relative to their goals, this is a failure. They were trying to win the championship, and we can talk about why. But at the end of the day, not only did they not win the championship, unfortunately, they didn't end up getting particularly close. They lost in the first round to an 8 seed who was missing their second best scorer.
yeah, and that hasn't happened in about 11 years. I mean, it's okay to lose. I just don't like when people lie about it. Like, I don't like how you say, you know what, we didn't expect to win a title. Come on, bro. Y'all expected to go. I'm not saying. Here's the thing. Like, it's not always. And Tunde, I think you sometimes you think I believe that that's the case. It's not always about winning titles. Like, like it's not always about winning titles. But come on, you mean to tell me that you expect to go out the first round in 5 to Miami? Like, come on. It's obviously it was a failure of some sort. Like, to not say that the season was a failure. What was that? Success? Was it a success? Because you guys went home. So I don't know how. I guess it's a silver lining between all of it. The thing is, like, we've seen amazing players get knocked off, like, in the first round. Like, and we've seen great players not even make the playoffs. Kobe Bryant, Steph Curry missed it twice. Like, so we've seen people not be able to get to the playoff. LeBron missed it twice. Like, so we've seen great players not get to a point where they fell short. But it's okay to fall short. Let's not, you know, try to act like that this isn't the case or it wasn't a failed season, because it was.
yeah. I mean, I think it's all relative to expectations. They had the expectation that they were going to compete for a championship, and Tunde, like you said, they didn't get close to it. So it's a failure. I mean, Giannis is the one that has to deal with that, in his own mind, and in how he prepares for next season. So I can see why an NBA player would view it like that because, you know, you're always going to try and get better. And this is another thing that you can use for motivation. But we all know it's a failure. I think Giannis knows that too.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think like I like think it's on. I think it's awesome like that he is able to kind of take, you know, great that he's able to have perspective about everything, but like we can be honest that this is a failure. And I just like everyone loves Giannis as they should, but like let's imagine the reaction that, you know, the public would have and that people would have if, you know, this comment was made by LeBron James or Steph Curry or Kevin Durant or Anthony Davis or Devin Booker or something. The reaction from the general public would not be, you know, the same as what the reaction has been from the general public, which is that a lot of people are kind of like eating this up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think it's just so much to, you know, get into with that. We won't be able to get to all of it today. Um, but over the next couple of shows, I believe there's it's just going to be so much to unpack, and probably even before the, you know, the playoffs is over, there's going to be stuff that's coming out of that camp that can potentially alter, you know, that organization. I know they're not going to be quick to make decisions, but we don't know the future. You know, a lot of these players, I mean, some of their players are up to be able to go to a different team. So, I mean, I don't know how this team shakes up next year. I will assume that they're going to be one of the favorites to win it next year. So it's going to be interesting to see how this team move forwards. But coming up next, I do want to get you guys' opinion on some of the playoff matchups that have already been set for round two. Coming up next on Spoken True.